Hi everyone, I am Mark Dave Digatara and I am the reporter of Rizal in London. So Rizal in London. Rizal left for London and lived there from May 1888 to March 1889 to copy, to study, and made the annotation or adding more notes of Dr. Antonio de Morga's Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas or Merits in the Philippine Islands, a rare copy of which he heard to be available and only kept in the British Museum in order to make his people know about the past history of our country. He also believed that London was safe and better place for him to plan and carry on his determined effort to tighten the injustice committed by the Spanish tyranny and misrule in our country. While in London, he kept himself busy, exhausting all available means to conduct research on Filipiniana studies. He completed annotating Morga's book and wrote several articles for La Solidaridad. La Solidaridad is a newspaper which is aims to it's like a propaganda movement about the assimilation with Spain. Rizal also came to know Dr. Reinhold Rost, a librarian of the India Office and an authority on Malayan customs and languages. Dr. Rost was impressed with Rizal's manners and called him una perla de hombre, or a pearl of a man. While in London, Rizal received some disturbing news from his country. These were good and bad news. For the bad news, there were exile of his brother-in-law who was denied a Christian burial, the arbitrary arrest and imprison of Lauranio Viado, a Santo Tomas medical student who was found in the possession of the copy of Noli Me Tangere. We all know that Noli Me Tangere at that moment was banned, right? So, and another bad news, the continued of the Calamba agrarian problem, where the tenants, including his family, were being persecuted by the Spanish authorities. On the other hand, the good news was one news, however, cheered him that Father Vicente Garcia, an old Filipino theologian philosopher, wrote an able defense of his Noli against the attacks of Father Rodriguez and other friars. The good news came from Mariano Ponce. Rizal spent his Christmas in London and New Year's Eve for the first time in the city, and extremely delighted to experience the holiday season. In his diary, he wrote, "It's the holiday I like to celebrate best. It reminds me of any memorable days, not only of my early childhood, but also of the history. On this day, a great genius and prophet was born to preach truth, love, beauty, and goodness. He suffered on his messianic zeal to save the world. How it shocks me to see some people misuse his name to commit many crimes." So that was the diary written in Dr. Rizal while he was in London. Rizal's writing in London he annotated the Dr. Morga's work, right? As we mentioned earlier. He also wrote articles for the La Solidaridad. He wrote a La Vision de Fray Rodriguez, where he demonstrated his profound knowledge of religion and his style in satire. The letter to the young women of Malolos was written in London. So this was written through the request of Marcelo H. del Pilar to praise the young women of Malolos for their courage and determined effort to establish a school where they could learn Spanish. So the important points of his letter to the young women of Malolos, first is Filipino mothers should teach their children love of God, country, and fellow men. Second, Filipino mothers should be glad and honored like Spartan mothers to offer their sons in the defense of their country. Third point is Filipino women should know how to protect their dignity and honor. Fourth, Filipino women should educate themselves aside from retaining their good racial values. And for the number 5, faith is not merely reciting prayers and wearing religious pictures, but rather it is living the real Christian and with good morals and good conduct. So that was Rizal points or key points from his letter to the young women of Malolos. Or Dr. Rost, who was specialized on the Asian studies and culture and editor of Trubner's Record, requested Rizal to contribute articles for publication which he readily acceded to. These were specimens of Tagal folklores and 2 Eastern fables, and were both published. So what is the specimen of Tagal folklore? So the specimens of Tagal folklore dealt with Filipino proverbs and puzzles, while the 2 East fables dealt with comparative study of the Philippines and Japanese folklore. So the need for an organ of the propaganda to neutralize the false, malicious, and defamatory articles designed to injure the reputation of the Filipinos written by Spanish detractor and mercenaries was evidently felt by the Filipinos in Spain. So that consequently led to the founding of the La Solidaridad by Graciano Lopez Jaina, became the editor of the periodical of the propaganda. So to demonstrate his unwavering support of the organ, Rizal contributed articles regularly in the La Solidaridad using his pen names, Dimasalang and Laong Laan. So that was Rizal's pen name. So others called it pseudonym or pseudonym pen names, just like Dimasalang and Laong Laan. So once you heard the word or the pen names about Dimasalang or Laong Laan, it is Dr. Jose Rizal. So Rizal left London. Some inferred that one of the reasons why Rizal left London hastily and moved to Paris so that Gertrude Beckett may forget him. We all know that Gertrude Beckett is infatuated with Rizal. So for some reasons, Rizal didn't, want this disturbance to his plan. So so it is one of the reasons why he left London. But before leaving London, he carved several fine and realistic sculptural works, governed by a great and detailed attention to anatomical shapes and proportions. These were Prometheus Bound, the triumph of death over life, the triumph of science over death, and the composite curving of the beautiful faces of 3 Beckett sisters. The triumph of death over life and the triumph of science over death were given to Blumentritt as gifts, while the composite curving of the Beckett sisters' faces were given to the Beckett family as farewell gift. As he left London, he could not help reminiscing the beautiful and memorable experience he had as he crossed the English Channel en route to Paris. In his diary, he wrote, "You've been part of my life. London, you've been part of my life. Goodbye."
I am Aslima Armarangit. I am the reporter of Rizal in Paris. Rizal arrived in Paris about 2 months before the opening of the International Exposition to commemorate French independence, wanting to seize this occasion to place his country on the map. He proposed the formation of an international association of Filipinologists under the presidency of Blumentritt and with himself as secretary. But because French government limited the number of international conferences, his project was postponed. However, he organized two societies of Filipino who were in Paris during that time. The first was Kidlat Club and Indios Bravos. Kidlat Club was organized to bring together young Filipinos in the French capital in order that they could enjoy their stay in the city during the international exposition. And the other one is Indios Bravos. Indios Bravos was created believing that we should not be ashamed of our own name. Let us be proud of the name Indio and make our Spanish enemies revise their conception. Its members are pledged to excel in intellectual and physical prowess in order to win the admiration of foreigners, particularly in Spaniards. And also, Rizal taught them with judo learned in Japan. Rizal's annotation, Morga's book, published. Matter of record, the publication of Rizal's annotated CDI of Morga's Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, which painstakingly wrote in the British Museum, was his and outstanding achievement in Paris. He dedicated valuable historical work to his countrymen. Blumentritt wrote the prologue commending Rizal for his historical intellectual scholarship. Romance with Adelina. In Paris, Rizal became fond of Adelina, a young, talented, quiet, and unaffected lady with refined manners. The boosted couple has two daughters named Nelly the older and Adelina the younger. Rizal and Luna used to visit the boosted family in Paris. In the course of their frequent visit at the boosted home, Nelly was infatuated with Rizal because of his wit, talent, and fine manners. Kung sa Tagalog pa ay na love us at first sight kay Dr. Jose Rizal because of his talent and fine manners. But because he loved Adelina, he did not even show any sign of affection for Nelly. On the other hand, Luna had strong feelings for Nelly, but she did have an iota of love for him. So, grabe naman talaga kasi kahit ni katiting na pag-ibig ay wala siyang nararamdaman para kay Luna. So, Luna became jealous of Rizal because Nelly was obviously in love with a talented gentleman from Calamba because she showered him with attention. So, napapansin talaga ni Luna yung yung attention, buong attention ni Nelly para kay Rizal, pero wala naman talagang pagtingin si Rizal kay Nelly because he loved Adelina rather than her. So, Luna thought all the while that Rizal was deliberately alienating Nelly's affection for him. So, iniiwasan talaga yun ni Rizal. So, to maintain and keep their friendship alive, he told Luna that he had no feelings for Nelly. So, sinabi talaga niya yun para manatili ang pagkakaibigan nila. So, Luna challenged him to duel, but fortunately, the matter was settled amicably by their friends. The saddest part of his life was the news of the impending marriage of Leonor Rivera, his sweetheart for 11 years, to Mr. Kipping, an English engineer employed in the construction of Manila-Dagupan Railway. So, na broken hearted talaga si Rizal dahil nalaman niya yung paparating na marriage ng kanyang sweetheart for 11 years kay Mr. Kipping. and to disregard his feeling, to divert his thoughts from the sad news about the approaching marriage of Leonor and feeling disconsolate and heartbroken, he visited the boosted family and Biarritz. So, para malibang yung sarili niya ay they visited the boosted family in Biarritz. His purpose of visiting the boosted family was the thought of offering a marriage proposal to Adelina. So, yan talaga yung pinunta nila doon is para makaiwas and also as well as to para na rin mag-propose siya kay Adelina. But it did not materialize. Hindi talaga sila nagtagumpay. There is a moment in one's life that one has to ponder and make a decisive decision, no matter how difficult. Fate played its role. Perhaps they were not really meant for each other. And that's life. Yung sabi nga nila, kahit gaano mo pa pagtrabahuhan yung hindi sa'yo, ay hindi talaga mapapasa iyo. However, in spite of his unsuccessful marital plan, Rizal remained a good friend of the wealthy, boosted family.
I am Raihana Idris. I am the reporter of Rizal in Brussels. Rizal in Brussels. Rizal left Paris and went to Brussels, capital of Belgium, because of the high cost of living. Beside the city life of Permanent and Fan, Rizal could not resist the temptation of joining his friend that oftentimes with his time devoted to writing his second novel, El Filibusterismo. Rizal and the Filipinos in Madrid. While in Brussels, Juan Luna and Valentin Pintora informed Rizal of the Filipinos' passion for gambling. Gambling was the biggest preoccupation of many Filipinos as their favorite pastime. He wrote a letter addressed to Feller to remind that the Filipino in Madrid that they did not come to Europe to gamble but to work for reputation for land's freedom or fatherland's freedom. Disturbing news at home. Letters from Calamba which he received in Brussels gave him some disturbing moment. The agrarian problem in his hometown had not been resolved and was even getting worse. The non-payment of rent of Don Francisco and other tenant farmers resulted in the filing of a case in court by the Dominican prior to evict them forcibly from the land. Rizal premonition. Rizal in his moment of despair caused by circumstances which seemed too much to cope with made him restless and sleepless at night because his family in Calamba was always in mind. Even if Rizal did not believe in superstition or irrational belief of the ominous significance of what is unknown, he could not help entertain the thought he feared that he would not live long.
And we are the reporters of Rizal in Madrid. Rizal's last journey in Madrid. Madrid, it is a capital of Spain. It is one of the pleasant cities in the world because of its people and culture. Upon arrival to this city, Rizal tried to exhaust all available legal means and remedies to seek justice for his family and tenant farmers in Calamba. But justice on their side seems elusive, which means mailap siyang bigyan ng justice or katarungan. Denied justice for Rizal's family. To secure justice for the various incidents of oppression and injustice and utter lack of human respect and dignity committed by the Spanish authorities on his family and the tenant farmers of Calamba, Rizal sought the help of the Filipino community, the Association Hispano-Filipina, and various Spanish newspaper who upheld truth and justice.
The background of the two duels. The circumstances surrounding the duel between Rizal and Luna stemmed from social gathering of the Filipinos in Madrid. The customary practice of serving wine to the guests had always been part of the merriment and fun. After drinking so many glasses of wine, Luna became intoxicated, and as a consequences of his rationality was quite impaired. So he became loquacious or yung madaldal. He accused Rizal for his failure to win the heart of Nelly. At the height of jealousy, he uttered unsavory words about Nelly. Rizal's respect for any woman's honor is a virtue that he valued, so he would not tolerate any disparaging remarks against that lady. So Rizal could not control his temper by the unchivalrous and demeaning remarks that Luna uttered, so he challenged him a duel. So when Juan Luna became sober, he realized that the incident should not have happened. So he begged an apology for the remarks he made unbecoming of a gentleman. So Rizal readily accepted his apology and the two became friends again.